we are going to be graphing what are called quadratic equations. And it sounds hard, and it's really not. It can be, but it's not. In math, when they talk about quadratic equations, really all they're talking about, and we'll talk more about it later, is when you have a term that starts with an x squared in your thing there. Okay? Remember this as a little reminder. If I have f of x, which is the same thing as y, equals x plus 5, what does this give me? Well, let's say make it 1/2 x plus 5. This is a linear equation. Remember, we solved that one by doing what? Slope-intercept form or standard form or whatever you want to do. Crosses the y-axis at 5. It has a slope of 1/2, so it goes up 1/2. That's the graph of that. We've already talked about anything that has an x squared in it is going to give me what shape? A parabola, a u. If it is a positive x squared, it's going to be a u. If the u is negative, if it's a negative x squared, it's going to be an n. It's going to lope up like this. If it's positive x squared, it's going to go like this. If it's a negative x squared, it's going to go like this. Just get that in your head. Now, one way to do it is to do the archaic way, and you just sit down and go, okay, I'm going to plot x and y values until the cows come home, and when I get enough of them, I'm going to have a reasonable looking shape there. So, and this is, oh, what was that? Was that a plus? I just put my thing there. And you don't want to do this. This is what I was going to have you do today. Do about 8 of these where you had to make the graphs of all this stuff. You know, first, I always put 0 in there because 0 is pretty simple. 0 squared is minus 2 times 0, which is? So when I have a 0 there, I get what? 4, right? So here at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's a dot. I'll have to do a couple more. Let's put 1 in. If I do 1 squared minus 2 times 1 plus 4. What do I get for y when I plug that in there? I get 1 minus 2 plus 4. 5 minus 2 is 3. So at 1 I get 3. Okay. Now that doesn't make sense, you're saying, because, well, it's supposed to be what type of u? It's supposed to be a u, right? Well, if you see this like this, that means, and a good indication is what they gave me for this graph, I'm sure the u is going to do this. Okay, we need to try to find where the bottom of this is going to be. We call it its minimum. So let's put a 2 in there and see what we get. Let's see, so 2 squared minus 2 times 2 plus 4. 2 squared is 4, minus 4 plus 4. 8 minus 4 is 4, right? So at the point 2, I end up with 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, look. I did find, and now you can kind of see where it's going. That's the minimum. Okay, it would be good for us. Now, if that's the minimum, children, here's something to think about. There is what we call the axis of symmetry. This parabola is going to be symmetrical around that point. This half is going to look just like the other half. I've already got these 2 points, so I know this is the start of it. It would be good to get a point up here or over here just to see what the rest of it looks like. Maybe I'll pick -1, see where it ends up on that -1 spot. So if I do -1, I get -1 squared, right? Minus a -2 times a -1 plus 4, which gives me, this is +1. 3 negatives there give me a -2 plus 4. 5 minus 2 is, that can't be right, is that there's something wrong? No. I had too many negatives here, sorry. This should have been positive one. Actually, it's 6. 4 plus 2 is 6. So at -1, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now note this, young ladies and gentlemen. If this is an axis of symmetry, and this dot is 2 places over from there, there's also going to be a dot two places on the other side in the exact same place. So I don't need to put that number in there because I already know it, and that gives me enough really to get me close enough to what my graph is going to be like. No idea what that is all about. And I get this. So there is the graph of x squared minus 2x plus 4. It's a parabola. It's a beautiful thing there. Got that? You can ooh and ah at this point. Now, nobody, including Christian, wants to do, by the way, it's not a V, but that's okay. There's a big roundy thing there. Nobody wants to do all that much work for that problem, so you're going to say there must be somewhat of a shortcut. There must be some shortcut. Yes, thanks for asking, and we are going to, rather than have you sketch them all out longhand, we are going to do this. If you take some notes, I think you'll maybe enjoy this. And if you don't enjoy it, don't worry about it. Most people don't. Okay, look at problem number 1 on this sheet here. See if I can find it here. It looks like this, correct? Yes. Still need to take some notes here. Write this down. When you're given a quadratic equation and you want to graph it, step number 1 is you want to find out what that axis of symmetry is. Because once you know that, most of your work is done, because now you know whatever you get on the left, you get on the right. So, find axis of symmetry. Okay, and the axis of symmetry can be found very easily by this one small equation. It's negative b over 2a, which is pretty simple, right, Jacob? Because that just means what? Say you don't know, because you don't. Say I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, what that means is this, kids. When you look at the generic form of a quadratic, it is this. Write this down. F of x equals a x squared plus b x plus c. Okay. Just like y equals mx plus b, those are all letters, and you know that the number in front of the m was the slope and the b is the y-intercept. Well, if I have this equation, take a look, here's my equation up here. What was it? 2x squared plus 16x plus 31. Really? Who made that one? Whose idea was that? What that means is this, people. The letter A is what's in front of the x squared. So A equals 2, because that's what's in front of the x squared. The letter B is what's in front of the x, which happens to be, in this case, the 16. And the letter C is what's the last number at the end of the thing, which is 31. Okay, so those are the 3 letters that you're going to need to find it to do this equation quickly. And to find that axis of symmetry, you take negative whatever b is, which was 16, and put that over 2 times whatever a is, which is, so negative 16 over 4 is, somebody? Negative 16 over 4 is 4. The axis of symmetry is at where x equals 4. So right here, I'm sorry, negative 4. So right here, where negative 4 is, my first step is I draw my dashed line, because that is what my parabola is going to wrap around. Question mark, problem, and this one again, most of them, we should have done this one because it has much easier numbers to work with as life goes on. So that was step number 1, you find your axis of symmetry. Step number 2, remember on that graph I said you need to find the place where it either bottoms out or is the top? That's the next thing we have to do. We find what we call the max or the min. Find max or min. And here's where a little common sense comes into play. If the parabola is a U shape, it's going to bottom out at the axis of symmetry. It's going to be called its minimum. If it is an N shape, that means at the axis of symmetry it's going to be the highest it's ever going to get, which is its maximum. So if this is positive, you're looking for its min. That's going to be the lowest point where it'll ever go. If this would have been a negative 2x squared, then I would be looking for its max, which is the highest it goes. So you do it the same exact way, it's just you need to make sure that's the top or the bottom. So to find the min, you have to put number 1 into the equation. Okay, which simply means this. Whatever my answer was in the first step, whatever my axis of symmetry is, I need to take that number and put it in here and see what I get. So it would be 2, what did we say? That was, the axis of symmetry was negative 4, plus 16 times negative 4, plus 31. And they're all really big numbers, but I think in the end it'll work out to a small number. What's negative 4 times negative 4? Positive 16 times 2 is 32. 16 times negative 4 is negative 64 plus 31. I really wish I would have started with that one because the numbers are easier. And look, 31 and 32 is 63 minus 64 is negative 1. And that means right here at axis of symmetry y equals negative 1, that is my minimum. That's the lowest that graph is going to be. Now I now know that my graph is going to bottom out there and look like that. Okay? And then the third thing we need to find out is, the next thing I need to find out, the third point you're going to find for step number 3 is you're going to find the y-intercept. And the y-intercept, ladies and gentlemen, is just going to be what letter C is. What is C? In my little thing over here, I went C is 31. So unfortunately, that isn't going to be on my graph. 31 is going to be way up out of the start there. Most of the time you'll be able to do it, but here I guess you can't. So then you have to go to the last thing here. You need one more. You need at least one more point. Okay, that's step number 4. So you get to pick. This is the only time you will just guess what number to put in for x and find the y value. But you want to be smart about it. I would probably put a negative 2 in there, just because that would be easiest. Okay? If I put negative 2 in for x, what does y equal? Well, let's do it. 2 times, did I say I wish we would have done this one first? Plus 16 times negative 2 plus 31. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. 16 times negative 2 is negative 32 plus 31. If I put all that together, this gives me a negative 1 plus 8 is 7. So at negative 2, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's a point. And like I said before, once you know, Christian, that there's a point here, where else can I put a point? Kelsey, where else can I put a point? If I know there's a point here, where else can I put a point? Just walk me through it. On the other side, see axis of symmetry 2 places away this way, back up 2 places this way, you know there's a point there. And your graph is, you can sketch it from here, it's going to be a kind of a narrow, thin sort of looking shape, like such. And you might say, well, that maybe it was easier to guess all these numbers here, but I don't think so. Using all these big numbers, probably not so much. So let me give you this sheet. We'll do a couple of them together. Oh, I already gave it to you, didn't I? Sorry. Let's see how quickly this works with number 2 here, in a little faster sort of motion. And by the way, a helpful little hint to you. They give you this portion of the graph for a reason. If your numbers don't fall on this, how you're doing the problem incorrectly. Take a look, see. Axis of symmetry here is going to be, and again, I write this down every time, negative b over 2a. Plug in my numbers. What's my b? What's my b? 8, correct? B is the number in front of the x. 2 times a is 2 times 2, so my axis of symmetry is negative 8 over 4, which is, and lo and behold, look, negative 2 seems to be a good place there, and bam, I draw my axis of symmetry. I want to find the lowest point of the graph, so I put negative 2 into my equation to see where on that axis of symmetry is my lowest point. So I fill that in, 2 times negative 2 squared plus 8 times negative 2 plus 4. Negative 2 squared is 4, so you get 8 minus 16 plus 4. And I have positive 12, negative 16. Negative 4 is the lowest point on my graph. That's the minimum. Now look at the beauty of the next one. The third step is find out where it crosses the y-axis. The y-axis, where that is the letter C. What's my letter C? So I know there's a point right here on the y-axis at 4. I can draw one opposite it right there. I kind of have my parabola there. Usually we like to get one more point somewhere here or here just to figure out what it is, just to make it a little bit better. So I would put negative 1 into that equation. 2 times negative 1 squared plus 8 times negative 1 plus 4, which gives you what? 2 minus 8 plus 4. Anybody? Negative 2. So at 1, it's negative 2. Just put your dot on both sides. And ladies and gentlemen, there is a sketch of the parabola. Now the unfortunate thing about this, children, is you have to be pretty exact with your negative and positives, and some of you maybe are not so much. So I would strongly recommend that you take your time and do some of these slowly. How many do you think we can get done? 17. Circle these. I'll give you easy ones. Let's try problem 3, 6, 7, and 11. 3, 6, 7, and 11. I'm a little hesitant again about letting you just do the work for this on that piece of paper because I saw what happened the last time I did it. So I want you to do the calculation for axes and symmetries and all that stuff on a different piece of paper. You graph it out here, but the calculations I want done on a different piece of paper. So I can look at it and see, and you're not all just stuck all over the place with this.